Hello, everything should be back in order today. Right, let's start. Oh, by the way, yesterday, the US unemployment questions. Thank you for your help from people, which generally I note came from people outside the United States. So sorry to people in the United States who are obviously not interested in that sort of thing. I might touch on it today again. But then there we are. Right, let's start with the personal savings rate. Fred charts, and so we're in St. Louis and America. Blue is the personal savings rate going back to about 1960. And it used to be from 60 till 82 or so, up near the 10% range, that sort of thing. But since the great bust of 1981, when Volcker came in, put interest rates right the way up to get inflation right the way down, all the way from that time, with bond prices going up, interest rates from the Fed coming down, savings rate went down, all the way basically to the Great Recession. And during the Great Recession they had a go at what was called savings, but seem to be giving up on it now. Now this is a My Budget 360 chart, so his drawings are on this, not mine. And the red is revolving credit. And from the same time, the 80s credit card banging was banging on all the way right to the Great Recession, and there was an attempt while the saving was going on to keep the credit cards either in the wallet or in the trash can, but it looks like they're coming out again. And the big question is it because everyone's happy again that the savings rate is going down and the credit cards are coming out, or is it something else? We'll try and work it out from outside the United States. No need for you to try and help us. We'll get there. This is from later in that article, and I'll read this because the two paragraphs above and below are worth reading to accentuate what the chart says. Over 58 million Americans receive some benefit from Social Security, and most rely on this payment as their primary source of income in retirement. Social Security is their primary source of income in retirement. Remember that only 1 out of every 3 Americans, a third, have a penny to their name. 1/3 have a penny to their name. Remember that only 1 out of 3 Americans have a penny to their name. 66% of Americans do not have a penny to their name, according to this. You could follow it up and check it for me. Do you think that the young with a tougher market are saving enough? Question mark. Here we've got median net worth from 1984 on the left, and the older people, 65 and older was the blue group, and these, it's household, isn't it? No, median net worth individuals. 120 grand for the blue, those are the people over 65, and 11 grand for the 35 and younger, the younger cohort type of people. And now, well, 2009, the older people have got all the money, basically 170,000 each, and the younger people have not got a penny. Well, the people that have not got a penny are the young people, and that's 35 and younger, but I think you could start pushing that up. It's the younger people that don't have the money. CNN Money apparently wrote in 1984, households headed by people aged 65 and older were worth just 10 times the median net worth of households headed by 35 and younger. That's more households, isn't it, here? But now that gap has widened to 47 to 1, making the largest wealth gap ever recorded between the two age groups. Now, an awful lot of that boomer wealth, or old boomer, boomers really are only just about hitting 65, aren't they? So it's the older generation. I'll leave it there. Go on to a Fed document giving us mortgages with negative equity, and you can see it was absolutely bugger all in 2005 because everything was swimming. And 2008 it had all changed. 14 million loans with negative equity, and that spiked up again to 14. You could say it's flat at a huge number, 14 million loans with negative equity. So any sort of shock and they're very likely to send the keys to the bank. Same document, prime mortgage delinquency rates, and again along the bottom from all time in history, all about way up to 2006-07, there was no fixed rate serious delinquencies or variable rate serious delinquencies, but it took off. And it's just to stress the amount that it's taken off. It really was a huge difference to what normal history was. And you can see even the fixed rate have serious delinquencies that are holding on at about the 5% mark, but the variable rates coming down, but still compare that to where it came from, huge. A bit from yesterday, it's another chart that I was playing with. US employment to population ratio 48 to 2011, and you can see, to my mind, that was more people working all the way up to the middle of the 2000s, or the start of the 2000s. Start of the 2000s, we can say that last wave was breaking at the tech bust, and it's been on its way down ever since. It just seems a lot more people are giving up on this employment idea. Older people are certainly retiring, and that could be part of the whole thing that we have to factor in, that if you get made redundant over the age of even 50, it's very hard to get back into the labour force, so you're just using what resources you have and just trying to make it to your box without having to get out of bed in the morning. Change in women's employment, still the United States economic peak data chart going back to 1956. We can see it peaked in about 1981, which is strange. Now these are the annualized change. This was people coming in, people being woman in this occasion. Annualized change, it was going all the way up to 1981 with more and more and more women coming in, but the annualized change of more women were coming into the workforce. They were coming in more, but less more, all the way up to 2007, and now less women are coming into the workforce. All round, less people, to my mind, that could be working in the United States are working. That seems to be the bottom line. International Business Times Australia, but isn't talking about Australia, it's talking about America. FBI pushes to classify undercover animal abuse investigations as terrorism. The National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, and various other unconstitutional anti-terrorism legislation all appear to be getting turned right back around on the American people. It has been revealed that the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, has been keeping files on animal rights activists who conduct undercover investigations of factory farms, and the agency is now recommending that these activists be prosecuted as terrorists. I've put this in because my later reading have got to the shock doctrine, and so many of these things are not direct shock doctrine things because I don't think they're being done on purpose, but they would all fit into that category. Over in Ireland, again, Nama Wine Lake, ECB refuses to hand over November 2010 threat letter sent to Brian Lenihan. I'll read from the bottom first. The story of Ireland's bailout in November 2010 has been partly told in dribs and drabs. Governor of the Central Bank of Ireland, Patrick Honohan, said that the Minister for Finance in November 2010, the late Brian Lenihan, was crestfallen, gobsmacked, when he learned from the ECB that Ireland couldn't default even on unguaranteed debts of the banks. The governor went on to say that Minister Lenihan was offered no room for negotiation on the matter, and they want to know how he was strong-armed, so they tried to ask the ECB for a copy of the letter and got this back, which is at the top. The second letter, the one in question, dated November 19, 2010, is strictly confidential communication between the EC President and the Irish Minister of Finance and concerns measures addressing the extraordinarily severe and difficult situations of the Irish financial sector and their repercussions on the integrity of the euro area monetary policy and the stability of the Irish financial sector, blah, blah, bloody blah. But they're not going to be handing it over. And this is from later in that Nama Wine Lake article. This is fact. In 16 days' time, Ireland will hand over. Now, this is a big number for Ireland. No, this is a huge number for Ireland. 1,250 million euro. That's 1.25 billion euro. That is a lot of Irish money. To bondholders in Anglo-Irish Bank. It's a bit confusing now that it's, I should have just read it, or IBRC as it is now known after merging with the Irish Nationwide Building Society. This is equal to the amount of new taxes in 2012 that were set out in the budget of 2012. Austerity budget, more taxes, less spending. The more taxes were huge. Again, third austerity budget, 1.25 billion in extra taxes, and in 16 days' time Ireland will hand over 1.25 billion to bondholders of the bank, as instructed by the ECB. So on one day we will pay over all our new taxes to unsecured, unguaranteed bondholders. These weren't the seniors, these were the juniors. After equity, they always get a haircut. Speculative investors, as Minister for Finance Michael Noonan called them in the US last June, and the reason that Ireland will take this course of action is likely to be contained in that letter of the 19th of November 2010, which the ECB refuses to publish. Again, it's shock doctrine type stuff, and unfortunately I think countries like Portugal and Ireland are in a state of shock at the moment, and will be for many years to come. It's hard to imagine an entire population in a state of shock, but they've got this new reality and they just don't know how to adapt to it except get their heads down and try and survive life. And above their heads all sorts of fancy stuff is flying about. Exclusive from Reuters: banks tap firms for cash. Reuters: blue chip names like Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer and Peugeot are among firms bailing out Europe's ailing banks, in a reversal of the established roles of clients and lenders. One source with knowledge of the so-called repo deals, or short-term secured lending, say the two US pharmaceutical groups and French carmaker were the latest to sign up for them. I've heard of more. Europe's banks are struggling to secure the cash to fund their day-to-day business and have largely stopped lending to each other for fear Europe's sovereign debt crisis could land any of their peers in trouble. So these cash-rich corporations are lending to the banks. There's a lot of very strange stuff going on out there. which tells us that this great recession crisis of money is far from over. Right, I just want to finish with this because I have kind of personal opinion this every now and then here. Face the Nation transcript, this is Panetta and some of the gits that were on CBS doing the Face the Nation. I've got the transcript and I'll read these two paragraphs because there are international things that are flying over people's heads at the moment. They're still getting on with their fun and games. I'll just start reading towards the end of the top paragraph. Do you have any indication that that's beginning to work, that strong-arming Iran, that's causing the Iranians to back off this idea of producing a nuclear weapon? In fact, do you think that's what they're trying to do, says Schaefer to Secretary Leon Panetta. I think the international strategy here, and this really has been international strategy, in other words, we're not just making it up, everyone's making it up. It's international strategy to apply sanctions, to apply diplomatic pressure on them, to try to convince Iran that if, they want to do what's right, they need to join the international family of nations and act in a responsible way. I think the pressure of these sanctions, I think the pressure of diplomatic pressure from everywhere, Europe, United States and elsewhere, is working to put pressure on them, to make them understand that they cannot continue to do what they are doing. Are they trying to develop a nuclear weapon? No. But we know that they're trying to develop a nuclear capability. And that's what concerns us. And our red line to Iran is not develop a nuclear weapon. That's a red line for us. Can you read between the lines just what that is saying? I thought I could, but life is so terrifically tricky that one just never knows. Bye.